Okay, this is some preliminary show footage. I'm here and we're ready to broadcast the major show. We've been having just a few technical issues before things start, but I always see these things work themselves out. Just really need to reboot this unit. And you know, today is going to be an amazing show because there's just some stuff that has to be said. There's really nobody to say it except for me. And at this point, I really haven't heard people talking about it. They've been really playing around with other stuff. But it's different for me. Like, I'm really working to solve the situation that we're dealing with here on the planet. We really want to go to a place with no more pain and suffering. And I believe we can get there with understanding everything that's going on here, taking the lessons that we've learned and then expanding from there. And to me, it really, I could see it. I can really see how that's what will get us to where we need to go. So of course, the only thing that is left is to get people that memo, basically to explain to them what's happening and, you know, the things that are occurring on the dimension and how to get beyond it. So that's what I set out to do now. Okay, again, I will tell everyone this. You know, I see Space House says here, oh man, very unlucky. Man, if you can't understand all of the situations or what you would feel like when you're climbing a ladder, then you need to ask yourself, do you really want to run the gauntlet? What I'm telling everyone is that, you know, when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, it's real. So it has an ability to react and to do different things or try to prevent things. But man and woman, the human being is mighty. And so all we have to do is remain persistent and we wear down all the walls. And when you do that over a period of time, it only takes you a moment to actually track down who or what you need to track down and neutralize it as far as negative energy is concerned. So again, let's begin. I really wanted to, like I said, keep the audio down on this recording because of the spiking. So if the sound is a little low, it'll be a clear sound later on if you get the digital recording. Now, let me find my notes here because I definitely have to follow along with my notes today. Of course, I have a bottling up of about, I would say, at least 2 to 3 weeks since I've really been on the resistance side and really been doing things. And that, of course, has been because of the baby. So I'll repeat it again that, yeah, there is definitely a new addition to the house. And this new addition is an instant frequency change. And I've been taking lessons a lot and just really wanting to spread those lessons to everyone. And a few things here, you really have to understand that there's a couple things, or actually not a couple, but quite a few things in this world that can give you an abrupt frequency change. You should really work to find them. And what I mean by an abrupt frequency change, I mean, when it happens, then you're a completely different person after that. One is spiritual contact. Of course, I denoted to you as also having a child. Earthquakes, that has a tendency, instant frequency change. At that moment, for a while, you're like, okay, I need to get my stuff together. I need to make sure that I'm ready to transcend. So winning the lottery, that's the instant frequency change if I ever seen one. So there's these things that are instant frequency changes. And I just had one. So what that has me is very, I don't know, just expanded on the situation. I can't even really put a word to it. I'm ready and willing to tell everyone everything without me being concerned about what people are going to do with the information and knowledge. And I think that really is what's held back the world for a prolonged period of time. Is if a person doesn't know about something, then so they have this piece missing. And what happens is that until they find it, they'll forever be wandering. And that's kind of what's happening here on Earth, is that there's some major pieces missing to our wholeness. And if we don't locate them, then we'll be here for like ever, suspended in time or kapoth or whatever they want to call it. So of course, my major objective today is to bring it home, meaning to drill it into people at this point about what is going on in the dimension, why we need to become adept and adult. I will tell you the frequency change with being a father is stronger. However, before that, I felt that frequency change when becoming an adept or an adult, and being responsible for the individuals around me that I saw that could benefit from my help or what I had to give them, just as a child benefits from what the mother and the father can give. So to make it clear, everyone has children out here. Trust me, there's more than enough children that don't have proper mothers and fathers that you can just adopt as your own. I mean, come on, this is what the world we're living in. So everyone has the responsibility to be a mother or father. But I will tell you, having your own personal one, it just does something to you. And it makes things serious, makes you awake. So this is definitely a positive thing. I'm seeming to like this top title of the book. Many people seem to have read that come onto the site because they list it as their favorite book, Be Here Now. I mean, I like that title. So I'm asking people to be here now. Look at the information. There is a warning in regards to the images and content that has to be presented today. And that warning is that if you're at a sensitive point and you know you're at a sensitive point in your spiritual progress, turn this off. Take time out for yourself, go into nature and start to heal the broken DNA that you're dealing with. Don't attempt to go into principalities like the Tin Man or the Scarecrow. It's important for everyone to see that this is not a game. You have people dying right now around the clock for occult knowledge and dealings with occult affairs. So if you want to really understand it for what it is, you understand it for your next expansion of when you can't be as careless as you have been, and you can't even really be asleep. So before we begin, I'm going to go in and just get a little bit of water, and then I'm going to come right here and then I'm going to deliver this. There's tons of images that have been loaded, and wow, I mean, we can really get this to a point where it's really clear today for people to understand what's going on. So I'm just going to take a moment and get some water. Okay, fire and water definitely makes steam. I realized that during some of those shows, especially in the past, that if I had a lot more water in my system, I could have transmitted the message better. After a while, when you're transmitting knowledge, I mean, your body starts to build up this different kind of heat. It's basically a prana, and if there's no real water in there to keep that thing conducting, you find yourself like it's somewhat of a gap in your thinking. And this is just what I've noticed about my personal body. So as you can see, fire and water equals steam, okay? And the steam is really what it's all about here. Like what I've basically uncovered in the planet is there is an extreme sexual nature or mating process going on all the time. And this is the soul of this entire planet, the core to how it runs. It's the energy. So let me go ahead and test my sound. Okay, so let's go with this. And that should help people on the sound too, just in case you're not hearing me properly. Okay, all right, yeah, that should get us going. Actually, I'll probably get a little loud, so let me pull it down just a little more so it doesn't spike. And okay, there we go. All right, so like I said, it's doing this is indeed like this job. I don't even call it a job or work. It's much more expanded than that, but it really gets you to thinking and to seeing things and to putting stuff together and to meeting people and looking at the coincidences that don't become coincidences anymore. And you see different people saying the same thing from different places, and you really get a whole idea of what exactly is taking place here on the planet, not only from the people that live in it, but also the knowledge that's within it and what you see around you. And if you have the opportunity to engage in this for, as your job, basically, as your work, the time that you have to spend in generating currency, if that was allocated to you going into understanding fully spiritual knowledge, then you would already be adept. The reality is also, and I'm going to definitely just adhere to my notes here, is that Okay, yeah. First of all, I just want to tell these people, by the way, the ones that are keeping up much of the ruckus, the malevolent forces, that since they are now declaring battle and killing more children, that by all means, spiritually, we're going to be equipping ourselves, and we're going to put on the whole armor of the Most High. This is the point now everyone has to realize, that if these people don't see Mashiach or Messiah, they're going to go nuts, because that's the only thing that they actually fear. Meaning what you see going on in the Arab countries and in Israel is a result of their confusion about who Shin, or the second or third component, who the son or the daughter really is. So what we have to do is show them that it's actually us, meaning that the Christ or the Messiah, when you, in the Kundalini, when you study it in all texts, it shows that it's the human being. So in real essence, I'm telling you now as a public service announcement, that if you don't show these folks that are acting crazy the powers of an activated human and how it can do well for this planet, and actually do well for this planet, by the way, because we're going to talk about how many individuals have activated and just totally took it into another direction. So see now that this is going to be up to us. There's about 60 more days left, a little bit less, maybe more. And that's about concentrating the right level of energy that is going to propel us to where we need to go, since so many consciousnesses are on the line. Meaning that people have chosen to put their consciousness on the line with the 2012 situation, and the dates and the times and the numbers and all of the sequences of the prophecies themselves. Most of this is Venusian magic, pentagram magic. So when an entire society starts to take on that, which, remember, the pentagram, I had to enlighten people about this. The pentagram was originally called the hexagram because it was, when a person pulled a pentagram out, a person knew that something like a hex or curse could be cast. Okay, so still understand that. Now the symbolism is blurring into each other. They're taking, one has the same name as the other. It's all in a huge primordial pot of goo. And that has to really be transmuted. That's really what the goo or the slime is about. And, you know, I guess that would be taking it primordial, but the primordial state is like slime. That's why most of the secretions from the human being are slimy. So if you really want to get a glimpse of what the primordial beings are, you can read it in enough of the chthonic books. It's like slime. The moving water itself, or amniotic fluid is our correspondence to it, but that's how it looks. So if you decide that that's what you want to be, and that you can interface with that and you can understand, by all means, why, go ahead and do that, but why would you leave humanity, and all the expansion that we can have here in this planet for darker parts of our consciousness that can't be understood based on what we are learning now, meaning that what people are ingesting now as far as information, their minds do not have the capacity to actually take it all, so they're lost. What's happened is so much of occult knowledge and symbols and explanations and all that has been fired at people so much that they're lost. So today we have to find people, and we can use truth to find people. And so by all means, let us get on with truth. So there's a couple notes that I have here for myself before I begin. And I really want to let people know, just because you cannot control your dream, okay, like a lucid dreamer versus a non-lucid dreamer, doesn't stop your dreams. So it's the same thing with this world, meaning just because you can't control this world is not going to stop this world. You need to learn how to gain control. Just like you can gain control of your dreams, you can gain control of your vehicle in this world. It now is imperative for you to do so. I'll tell you first that the reason why most people have not put all this knowledge that I'm going to present today together is because anyone raised in the Western culture, Westerners, have this incessant ability to not know anything about anyone else beside themselves. Meaning that in the Western culture, we have, let's say, Snoop Dogg, and we have Mariah Carey, and we have these individuals, and you can go to other countries, and you can say Mariah Carey, and they'll be like, oh yeah, we love Mariah, right? But there are many, let's say, Spanish artist that I could say, you know, Hector Vasquez to you and you'll be like, who? Because in the Western culture, we don't study other people's cultures. We're completely infatuated with who we are and what we're developing, and that's allowing us to miss the obvious. So today, we are going to go and look into other people's cultures. So here we go. And I do want to tell everyone, if you do get out of hand in the chat box, I will remove you from the chat box. Just like one of those video games where, you know, you get booed or kicked by the moderator. I'm going to remove people from the chat box today at any point if they can't handle themselves. All right, here we go. And most people should save their judgments for in the end of the conversation, not in the beginning. So then when you see the whole picture, then you base the whole picture on what you've just seen. So all religions that you have here in your world have a Cabalistic origin. The Cabalistic codes, which correspond to DNA, just like I Ching, make up the entire programming field of this world, especially things to do with higher powers. This is just the programs that this particular matrix is running on. So, sourcing some pictures here. Actually, that attempted to source it. Oh, good, it sourced it on time. Actually, that picture. Okay, that picture actually went to the bottom, but let me go ahead and source the second part of that picture here, which will go right to the top. I always have to select immediate here. But what I call these are the Cabalistic cores. This is when these kind of matrices are created on the MEs being used, because you see these same patterns in water, and you can see the occult scripture that says, in my Father's house there are many mansions. Matrices like this are constructed as such. And they're running, the picture I just sourced, and they're running on tones and vibrations. There's different variations of these. For anyone that's looking at it and says, oh, okay, I'm going to decipher this and then I'm going to know everything. No, that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is you're going to plunge into a world that someone has already built in their mind. Unfortunately, the individuals who know how to do this, the worlds that they've been building are very dark. And much of those worlds have only the potential to pull a lot of energy from you. So create your own world. I want to tell people that today. Don't be taking this knowledge and then going and putting it somewhere and seeing if you're going to call something and something's going to happen. Let me explain to you the difference between a soul and a spirit. In your body, there's a soul. First, I want people to think about that question. They don't even know the difference between a soul and a spirit because they're confusing all the words for one thing. Forgetting when you speak external, it has one word. When you speak internal, that word is either intoned or backwards. So let us ask ourselves, how much do we really know? Excuse me, let me test this here. I definitely need a DJ here. So so where we're at is basically bringing things into the external world is what the knowledge here is all about on this planet, the occult knowledge. And I'm just going to let this run without a recording because I see that it's slowing down our buffering speed. And okay, every time I have one of these technical difficulties, I got to see where I was at and start from there. But okay, so we'll go into this just from the Cabalistic core of all religions. So what you have to understand is that how religions are really put together is based on worlds or afterlives. That's why it became so popular even for the Catholic faith to sell tickets to heaven. The mafia would buy tickets to heaven. Do you think the mafia was stupid enough to not say, well, show me this heaven first? It's because the Cabalistic projections have been designed for other worlds, afterlives, resurrections. The knowledge that they're keeping from humanity is actually the knowledge of the big stuff, the big levels. Like you could squander all you want here and then die, 72 years. But what if you could live again? But the people who are learning and studying this, actually, they don't want to do any learning and studying. They just want someone to actually tell them. You can't go to Don Corleone and sit him down for hours and hours telling him how he needs to transmute himself. So understand what was being offered and the worlds that were being constructed, because the worlds had to hold the frequency of the individuals that they were given to. Now, let us begin. So I want just everyone to know from the beginning here that most religions, if not all religions, have a Cabalistic core that they've been designed with. Now, that design or that knowledge obviously is kept in the hands of some type of high level of sentience. And this is why. As you'll notice throughout this program, the same symbol continues to be used, which is what's called this Megan star. The Megan star, or the six-pointed star, is known as we'll just call it the sexagram. It's the unity of one spirit from below coming to one spirit from above, and when they interlace, then something comes out from the middle. That's known as the seventh component. So what you have really here is the core of how our DNA and how creation works. You can notice before you would say to yourself that, okay, yeah, it's because this symbol is the symbol that they are using and that's what they want to make everyone think. No, this symbol is in water. This symbol is in light. This symbol is supposedly in Merkaba too. So it becomes important, especially if we see people flying this symbol around and you see ancient civilizations using the symbol too, to figure out, well, what does the symbol mean? Now, what we're talking about here is we're talking about creating life. Now, of course, life comes in different variations. There's not just one kind of person, one kind of animal. There's different variations of life. So what creates those variations? It's the DNA. So right off the bat, you have to really understand that the keys and the codes to the DNA configure what kind of being is going to come out. So I'll say that again. The keys and the codes and the configurations in the DNA configures what kind of being is going to come out. But there is something, and as I was explaining earlier about the difference between a spirit and a soul, there is another procedure that takes place that is hidden by scientists. And that procedure is the infusing of the soul or spirit that corresponds to that DNA or gene code. Okay? So where does the spirit come from? And this is why we now see that there's several layers before we totally realize that all is one. Because we still have spirits running around here as if they're separate. Now, again, the difference between the spirit and the soul is inside of you. It's yours. You've never seen it because it's not in front of your face. It's inside of your body. You won't see it until you go into the innerverse. But spirits are those who are outside of you, other consciousnesses that have been doing what they want to do and living like you live. But what you'll find is the interesting point of when the spirits first came in contact with the souls of this planet. Let's see here. This computer is still loading. Be allowed to reset itself. So what you have is your Genesis, and what says that there was a serpent in the tree. First of all, snakes, trees, and DNA are always intertwined for a major reason. It's not just about slithering snakes across the ground. It's about DNA, and it's about the power of trees, which we'll get into later on. And when mixing genes and traits taken from trees into the DNA to bring forth a different kind of being. Now, let me show you why the traits of humanity is within trees. If I want to make somebody happy, there's a tree. It's not magic. I just get the tree, they smoke the tree, they're happy. If I want to make someone sick, there's a tree. It's poisonous. If I want to make someone strong, there's a tree. If I want to make someone look old, there's a tree. If I want to make someone look young, there's a tree. So do you see how, meaning when I'm saying there's a tree on this planet that you can pull an element from that does that. Now, if you don't know chemistry and all that, then it's hard for you to do that now. But remember, there was a whole group of people in our past, which later on became known as witches, that understood the entire forest of trees and what they could do. And how eating certain trees and then bringing forth life gave you beings of that variation. You are what you eat. You see? So people are missing the obvious. The Nephilim were the trees. That's why they were made as fixed stars. Trees can't move. They have roots now. They agreed to stay here, basically. Their responsibility that they put forth, as you see in the Testament, that there's clearly a mating between spirits, which they're calling Nephilim, and flesh. But see, they disguise it within another mystery by saying they saw the daughters of man were exceedingly beautiful, so they took upon themselves wives. That's not what the book of Enoch says. That's not what many of the books that even speak on that particular segment says. What it says is that the earth was flesh, or what we consider flesh, or the pentagram. And then they were hexagrams, or light, or rain. That's why I said the reign of the king. And they rained down their seed. And it fell upon the earth, and everything that was touched with it began to be fruitful and multiplied because they spilled their semen on the ground. You see, now look, your Bible is all turned around and riddled up. Your Quran is all turned around and riddled up. It's not telling you what really happened. So today, it's important that we get out the story of what really happened, but at the same time, understanding that this is a cycle. It keeps happening. There's an old ancient version of this, and there's a techno-robotic electronic version of this, but it's still the same thing. That's why you have to stop getting looped through these matrices that appear as different, but are really actually the same thing. How could you ever really learn? But the first thing is to learn what's actually happening. So let us go with this. Seems like we have somewhat of a solid connection. The obvious connection to the tree and DNA. Everyone keeps missing it. People are looking for angels and winged men to worship, but they don't see that when those winged men and angels come here, it's going to be the end of how humanity actually thinks things really are. So you need to think about what you're really asking for, seeing that we have the ability of what is being described throughout the text, in spiritual texts, ancient texts, as power. It was always within us. It's the gift or the curse, as they call it. So it's something that we have is what we need to realize first. Now, here's a photograph from Scientific America. And this is Science Photo Library, obviously showing you that they understand it. And I'm going to show you, because some people say, well, that's a current picture. Of course, they're trying to manipulate things. No, I'm going to show you it from all the way to now, all the way to back in the past, how they keep showing the same symbolism. The apple, which is phi. Let me just source this picture really briefly. Starting to learn better how to order these pictures. Well, it's not allowing me to see all the pictures now. But phi is the apple, because of course when you cut the apple in half, you see the 5 seeds. And that 5 is of course phi, and phi is of course the pentagram. So what is shown on the tree is the pentagram, the tree itself, which is DNA. The entire tree is actually humanity. As the ancient knowledge proves, the atom cadmium, the androgenin, is stretched out across the galaxy with all of its planets as its chakra centers, like a large man just stretched out in the galaxy. Excuse me, not a man, an androgynon. The cat, they call it Adam Cadman in their speak. So you see that this tree can be looked at as several different things because the trees have so many different abilities, meaning that when people get a hold of the knowledge of the tree, because remember, what was offered in the garden? The knowledge of good and evil, the tree that gave the knowledge of good and evil. Okay, well, let's look at what are they saying? Well, somehow when you ingest this tree, it'll start to let you see the difference between good and evil. That sounds like duality. So the tree split you. Now you have two DNA. Woman even has a mark down the center of her belly. And then this tree, from the one whose forked tongue, has everyone pretty much on the planet in a craze of figuring out what exactly is going on. Meaning that what was ingested from this tree of life in the garden that split the DNA, now man, because man is now man and woman. That's why I said, and she gave it to him. That woman took from the tree and then she gave it to man. No, then she had a man. When they say he took it from his rib, or God took the rib from Adam and made Eve, he took the ribos, which is a name for the DNA structure, and made Eve. They're showing you this is the splitting. So the Anunnaki are not God. Actually, by the actual correct term, we need to define all those words, but we'll do that later on. But the Anunnaki are genetic manipulators. All they did was split the DNA, or the original creation of the Most High. Now, that is called entering the holiest of holies. You see, all of this has still a sexual nature to it, because now you have these more advanced beings tampering with something that is still immature. Okay? And this, of course, is why no one can seem to put the story together, because they have sexual or root chakra problems since they were the age of 5 to 7. So you see here the Anunnaki birdmen. They are really, of course, the Igigi fallen archangels, but they're spirits. They're not men. This is when they say that Abraham knew that these were angels, it's because they come with the motif, like Santa Claus, long beard, long hair, couple horns, and everyone, oh, there goes an angel. You see? So what it shows them doing here in the picture that they're now so confident to publish is that they're tampering with the tree. And they're entering the holiest of holies. This is why the pine cone is at the back of the neck, because the one behind him obviously is quote unquote an angel, but the one in front is a king, not a man. There's a difference, because the kings were demigods. This is Canaanite wisdom. CNN. So what you find here is that he's saying, through the third eye, I looked into the DNA. Now, what did they tell you about the guy who won the Nobel Peace Prize on how he found the design of DNA? He took some mushrooms and some LSD and he saw it. So it's showing you that the pine cone or the pineal gland can be opened by generally somebody who's running around here waving the acacia, which is a simple alchemical procedure to turn it into dimethyltryptamine. And then boom, if you're in a configured temple of Solomon, which is basically a hexagram uniting with a pentagram, then you actually create a vortex or implosion point. This is called time travel. Now, of course, the Egyptians are time travelers, or actually the Kemetans were time travelers. There were time travelers here, but when you understand time, you just understand a time traveler is an astral traveler, lucid dreamer, or time lord. Okay? But to do that and to project yourself, that knowledge was already known, because it's about basically imploding yourself, meaning that being so satisfied with yourself that you come into a perpetual orgasm. You don't need anything external to please you. That's what this secret is all about. And the more you get degraded and the more pornography and the more all these things, you become less sensitive. Then you have no aura at that point. If someone that can see aura puts you up against the wall, they say, oh, I just see like a clear thing that's like this thick. Yeah, because now you have no colors anymore. You have no more materials. They've been scythed or removed or burned away. So that's why I was saying the thing is serious. Like people think, this is I'm going to sign up and I'm going to text a couple things. I'm going to say a couple things. I'm going to show everyone that I know everything. How much do you know? And how much do you need to know? Like the first people to speak about their judgments and saying what they know what's going on, but yet still remaining on earth, yet never seeing the league, yet never seeing the seeds that are birthed in inception and brought into the vessels. How are you going to say you know anything? But this is the other situation. You got a plethora of individuals that basically got a little bit of knowledge and then stuck with that. They never started studying. And then lo and behold, they never kept studying. And then lo and behold, they started teaching people. Feel like, okay, I'm ordained as a minister. Now I'm going to go and teach this book. Do you know where the book came from? Do you know who the book belongs to? Do you know anything about where the culture of where this is from and the potency of it? And also the incessant situations that could occur if you put your hands on it and you don't know what you're doing with it. Now, here's a picture. Now, this occurred before. Apparently, these trees, a few of them, they say mainly 200 trees, were to a point where they were controlling everything through their roots, because there was already a point in humanity where the sons of the trees, meaning the seeds of the trees, were spraying all over the land, and everything that they fell on that became fertile birthed something. These became later on known as demigods or whatever. But it shows you mainly in the Greek account, but also in the Hebrew account, and even in the Hindu account, a war between the sons and the fathers, or basically the ancient ones and the ones that they birthed here. So when that war ensued, these trees were felled. That's why the whole secret to I saw him falling from heaven, meaning I saw the tree fall. But it goes on in the Talmud but the roots was what we did not consider. And then, as they say, the serpent, or then it becomes the roots, klipo, became the hindrance to man and mainly the child of man and woman. And that hindrance it's an energy that pulls down. Now, as I blogged about before, they tried to remove this energy, but it's weeded so much in earth. The best that can be done is everyone is put his choice. If they want to remove themselves from this basically fell tree, then they have to wake up and realize it's entangling them. So again, I warn people about the graphic nature of the images, but again, I don't have time to keep playing with individuals. Like I said, we have 45, possibly 50 days left to completely expand into a totally different level of consciousness that is going to equal what I call bio or geoenergetics, a fully, completely charged human being, but not some Ubermensch killer. Like, people are in the network. It's funny because I noticed the people are in the network. Some are still very religious. Others are looking for when I drop the right components so they can go and create some type of cycle pump. And they don't understand that the leagues are gearing up to vanquish pain. A world without pain and suffering is on the horizon. The ones, of course, who are blind can't see it. I mean, all the dark people, that's never going to happen. It's not. Good is always written as winning in every book for a reason. Books are made with trees. It's paper again. The cutting of roots is the understanding of exactly how and where to get certain elements from that do certain things. And let me turn up this air just a little bit here, because we have at least, probably at least about 2 more hours today. Choose to log off and come back on, take a breather. Get the lesson. Let's see what's actually happening on the planet that we've been asleep on. And hopefully when you wake up, the first thing you'll say is, how long have I been asleep? Like an aeon. And that can cost you. So what's here is you see that in the dark levels of mysticism, these books cost upwards of $50,000 to $60,000. You find replete the symbolism in the story of the symbolism being used for wealthy occultists who have been working craft and weaving webs with their companies and entities. See, they've been binding and making alliances and agreements with individuals, with giving them fine print. And then people don't even know what's going on as the fine prince roams about. So what happens here is that you'll see that there was still a tree that they all revered. Later on, this tree becomes, of course, connected to Saturn. A tree that had the knowledge of good and evil, interlacing triangles, any dual component. Okay? And that's why also Eve there has to be a man now, because Eve has to give it to a man. You see what I mean? So there has to be a contact there for this knowledge to be passed. Now, here's the reason why humans now are scared of spirits. And as I told you, you're not scared of your soul because you've never seen it. But if a spirit walks in the room, super flush, gaseous thing, you can kind of see it unless you're too dense to even notice. But if that comes in the room, you might jump out the window. Why? Why such a natural instinct to fear spirits? The first encounter. The first encounter with the spirit of the tree, because it's made out of fire, known as Jah or Jah to the Rastafarians, was painful. And this is why there is always a pain associated with birth. There's a menstruation cycle associated with moon or Nanar sin, because there is a redundant story being told about getting involved with the spirit of wisdom, the knowledge of the tree of the garden. Okay, now which has always been the moon. Beside the obvious facts of what the moon does, the moon was always known also as a wisdom god. So you just have to put it all together. So something is coming, telling the knowledge about basically how to blend, how to mate, and how to create, even with other things. So notice the message that is being given. God says to not eat from the tree, lest ye shall surely die. When you eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, your DNA then splits. Now you're dual. You become Dios, the demigod of earth, or demigoddesses. And then from that point, you live in this dualistic world where you actually think you can die. You see how when fear creeps in, fear clouds the mind from extracting what the actual message is behind something that is hidden behind it. See, they hide their knowledge behind your fears, so you'll never access it. And until you go through your fears, you can never have the knowledge. So then they spend most of the day creating more fears. Do you think they watch Saw? Do you think they eat the food that they're feeding you? You think about it. Do you think the owner of McDonald's eats McDonald's? Or owners of McDonald's eat McDonald's? No, they're eating purebred stock. They have someone raise it organically and then eat it. They don't eat this stuff. So notice the play. You're being encouraged to go into darkness while they pretend to be light. You become the base pillar and then they stand on top of you. God's footstools, wretches. You see, sometimes you do have to probably go to the streets to figure this out, because the way they're handling this is like they're from the streets. If people can't see that by now, then you're asleep. Look what's going on in Israel, in Gaza. These are the Holy Lands, but remember, the Holy Lands were the gems for the kings. Meaning that if you were a king and a conqueror of the earth, any type of holy land was like a jewel for you. You wanted to possess it. People are not understanding the actual correspondences here. What does the purest jewel stand for? And where is that on earth? And what if someone becomes king of that area or proclaims themselves as king of that area? As the picture I'm sourcing now is Lord Bullion, which I think is one of the first terms coined for money, obviously by money changers. And Lord Bullion is the first king of Jerusalem after the Crusades. So here's that image here. And you can tell by those crosses, oh, you've seen those crosses before. So get it right. Understand who's in the position of principality now. But don't think that principality is the highest thing. It's actually an inverted klipot. It makes them one of the lowest things in their position. And they know that. That's their goal. So let's keep going with it. Notice in the image previous to Lord Bullion, there's still lords, while everyone's still running around with a lord. You notice in the Venusian tree 8 and 5, this is again the Sumerian star was an 8-pointed star, as they call it, or basically some Aryans were using the 8-pointed cycle of Venus. And then you see the apple, which this is completely encoded, because if you don't know apples are pentagrams, then you're just like, oh, is that just like an apple in the middle of a wheel? You see why the profane and the ones who do not spend their time in study cannot comprehend the ancient knowledge anyway? And even if they got a hold of something of power, which they will not, then it will only be used to corrupt things further. Do you not see that the ultimate power of pureness becomes also the ultimate weapon if it's abused? See, this is another thing that people refuse to address. When one activates and turns on massive energy, what is going to stop them from becoming another weapon? Because Mars, aka Samael, as you notice in the movie Total Recall, Arnold Schwarzenegger says, nah, I don't want to know about Saturn. I want to go to Mars. Check the movie out again, and then you'll understand the Martian culture and the warlike culture. And you see, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger's connection to Nazism and the perfect body and the perfect man, or what we'll talk about later, which is the gold man coming from the sky, like the guy jumping out the Red Bull plane, ushering in a new age of man with their leader Cronus behind them. See, they act like people don't really understand what's going on, but there are some, and that's all it really took anyway, meaning that the whole collaboration of what we are is still within the focal point of each one of us. It's just about which one of us activate that focal point of potential and then cause the chain reaction with others that are simple and just like us, meaning that the knowledge is simple. Once you really start to see the key, you can back off all this thing and say the key is happiness within. The key is actually feeling happy with myself and my experiences here on earth, that there's no regrets. And now I easily lay down my life because I consider it as no account, meaning that I've actually gone over this. I triumphed earth completely, and I will assist others in accomplishing that same thing. You see, that's all these scriptures mean. But when in the hands of the pagan and the Megan people, Pa and Ma people, still thinking the duality, it's the mother, it's the father. When in the hands of them, the knowledge and the creation of life, these opposite poles, which is the white and the black, now we have a situation. So understand that you fell from the ladder. The DNA, 94% of the DNA is shattered. The information is like when they bring back the Dead Sea Scrolls and they show you how many pieces were missing and they interpret it, what was said in between. If you ever read the Dead Sea Scrolls, you'll notice it always seems to drop off at the most important point. But anyway, it's a ladder, the DNA, that we must climb again. We must rebuild the ladder or our connection with the Most High. The Most High is our oversoul. It is us. But here's what's happening. Without 94% of the DNA, you cannot really interact with certain spectrums which give you the full realization that you are the Most High. All is self. Meaning in the highest state of you in full totality, there's no one to talk to because there's no one listening. There's nothing outside. Everything is inside. And you encompass all things. Vast. No one can trek you. Like your depth is unfathomable. This was what we left when we left the garden. But remember, in the garden, there was other trees. Some people need to ask themselves, well, okay, let's just go with the serpent reptilian creation thing. How did they get in the garden? They were already in there. That's what people need to understand. It's the trees, whispering willows. So what happens is, in taking in the knowledge, we got to a point, and this is, you speak as we when you take a responsibility, we got to a point where the tree obviously was collapsing. This is even what's happening today when if the children are not taken care of properly, surely they're brilliant, but that becomes the ultimate weapon. When they're not taken care of, you have all these children that are mutilating themselves. Understand, this is not a black and white thing. This is everyone's getting it. The white kids, for better lack of words, are mutilating themselves after watching too much MTV, pouring salt all on their hands and the ice and burning themselves and all sorts of stuff that they're being instructed to do, right? And then the black children with the melanin, that melanin is from the sun. So everything magnetizes to what they do. So they're up there rapping and singing about leading us all to the dark places, period. That's all you hear coming out of their mouth. And everyone is following it because they have an incessant idea in their mind of following the sun. Then you have the Indians out there, or the Hindus, and they set up an entire Bollywood for them. And all the movies are just foolish. It's like Mr. Bean times 5 foolishness. And then you check on your Oriental citizens, it's Gangnam Style. What is going on? It's because everyone is under attack. When you see the attack of the one who's carrying the blue shield, notice there's always a different color hexagram. That's the other thing, or this Megan star. It's either light blue, like baby blue. Sometimes it's red. Sometimes it's black. And that all means something. Because there's 7 colors in the spectrum, then white and black, and that makes 9. That pretty much encompasses an entire dimension. That's it. No more. So what happens is that those who are welding those stars and you see them moving around and attacking, they're not just attacking one small group of people, they're attacking consciousness. Because consciousness, I talk to people daily and they're like, man, the whole war thing's got me bummed out. It affects people. So that's when we kick in. We get the call. Hey, malignant Dajjal in the dimension, go ahead and do what you need to do. Done. Again, these Anunnaki birdmen, or what's behind these cabals and religions of what they're calling God, are not creators. They're only evolvers. So let's just get that clear. They're evolvers. They change and manipulate DNA to create more Frankensteins. In the inception of the Kabbalah, meaning that the whole birth of the homunculus or the golden lotus, which is the ancient knowledge of man's womb, he can first bring forth an entity into the spiritual world, because everything starts in the spiritual world first. It's a higher vibration, higher wavelength of light, etc., but it happens there first. And that's the secret to predicting things on Earth, is an angel can ascend into higher layers of the timeline and pull things back and then descend back into this dimension and predict them going to happen and give it to adherents before it actually occurs here. Because what is done on Earth is actually done in heaven. Now, they have these people actually praying that what is done on Earth and what is done in heaven is also done on Earth. Speeding up processes of manifestations that Cabalistic individuals are cooking up, meaning that the whole art of this dark Cabalistic teaching is very similar to PlayStation for a dark mind. And that's really also what most of the games on PlayStation really has going on. But what they could do and what they can do is they have words that they can pronounce that come out like seeds. Let me publish this image and show you a seed of Kabbalah. So when the tones and the vibrations come out, it puts out a seed into this astral plane. And depending upon the strength of that seed and the will of the one pronouncing it, that seed will actually begin to grow. If it reaches full growth, then it can be brought into third dimension, possibly, depending on what kind of seed it is. Now remember, they spend most of their time constructing these demonic characters with a frog head, lion, snake, venom, and want to bring that into the dimension through somebody like Lady Gaga and the rest of everyone else listening to their music. Because then one spirit, which is very large, first has to be birthed, so that generally kills whoever's birthing it, and then it spreads into all of the rest of the individuals that are actually receiving the vibration and the tones from that frequency. So this is serious business. Now you see the codes here, the DNA be lined up again with the star that you know as the Megan star. Okay, so I'm just showing it to you in a general ancient area that is already marked here on Earth, that the individuals were there, knew about the DNA, and that this was all about DNA manipulation. Now I'm sourcing to you another pillar that is located in the Le Chateau Reims, which of course is another correspondence to the Temple of Solomon. There's many everywhere, even some just configured in the streets. But you also see here that the DNA pillar is located there also, meaning that even though Asmodeus is at the front door, which is of course the chief of demons who imprisoned Solomon, or the three moons themselves in stupor, and they forgot all their knowledge and knew not who they were when they lost the ring. So what happened is that you can see that they, in that temple, keep the knowledge also of DNA and bringing forth these grotesque creatures, many of them waiting on astral planes to be infused into adherents, meaning individuals who start practicing the dark occult knowledge, start listening to the crazy rock music, which is inorganic. See, with the guitar, the music is inorganic. It's the wood. Now you don't see a wood guitar. You see an electric guitar. And this is also how you'll notice the world move from wood, which is highly malleable. Also, remember, most of the tools and the things that we created in the past were done with wood, because you can shape and fashion wood. Boats, it's easy to meld. It's willing. It will bend. It's like wicker under man's hands. So man moved from that to wanting to actually control even greater forces, such as the metals, the monatomics, then move from that to want to even control, I don't know if we can call it a greater force, but plastic or silicone or psi, as it's called, which is also the Gangnam Style guy. And then moving also simultaneously into another level of wanting to control ether. So we're at an ether war now. And again, you could tune out. I think I can deal with this easy. The more crazier it gets, the more the energy and the reason wells up inside of you to activate your vehicle. And it does things on an entirely different level. We don't wage war with bombs and sticks and lead and rocks. Are you crazy? You must be a caveman from the Stone Age. We're dealing with rulers and domains and principalities. To deal with them, we pull out laser. Like, the people need to understand what the scripture means. When it's time to cut the stone, you raise the laser or raise Lazarus from the dead. They say Jesus, aka the Messiah, had to raise Lazarus from the dead to get these folks to believe. Yeah, you may have to bring out the crystal laser to show these individuals what is in atmospheres and environments that only most people get a chance to see when they're on something like ayahuasca, when you can watch a huge spirit stretch out across the sky as a cloud. And you can actually see it because you can use your third eye to mesh in with the hues that you're missing because of a burned out eye, being blinded by the light in external reality, dealing with a Metatronic sun. So again, you see a gene gun. You see these people are into the holiest of holies, as I told you. The abomination that brings about desolation. What does that mean? That means that when they start tampering with the DNA and actually screw up, then it starts to bring forth children that are not balanced. Their magnetic fields are extremely imbalanced as they find themselves tethered to a star. Now, let me explain this once again so people can understand why people seem to be in conviction or convicted by their God and why they can't seem to get loose. And this is why in Kabbalah they make you tie a red bracelet around your hand, because that's the lower frequency spectrum, and all of those entities, according to that braid, can see it. And then, so they said, oh, so that's one binding, one oath, one pact that is occurring just within one level of spiritual knowledge. Now, again, let me just keep going with this, because I'll get into that in a minute. But people think it's a game, and at times, and that it's a joke, and they also think that we don't really keep the real knowledge and the truth on our end in order to decimate a lot of the things that are occurring on this dimension, but they're mistaken. What you see here, and you may work all day in attempting to interpret it, but let me make it simple for you since it looks so complex. This is the simple law to let you see the individuals of the sons of Levi, which is, of course, Leviathan, or the world serpent, which actually was more connected to Venus than it was this planet. The dark serpent force of Voodoo, or Yoruba, which is actually where Europe gets its name from. So you understand why they favor guys like Obama, and they put the black man, or Kim Baphomet, everywhere that they can now, because they know who the original Naga, or king of Nagus in the Kushite kingdom, really is, which is what they did when they took Israel, which is definitely the Venusian cult, and then they put it with Ra, which is the Egyptian sun god, and then they bought El, which is a Saturnalian with the Saturnalian knowledge with the moon as a refractor. And boy, it takes everyone a long time to figure out what the hell is going on, and that's what it is. Hell, the whole thing is not balanced. And trust me, though, when you bring your body into balance, it's not something you're waiting on the world to do. You can wake up any time. I'm fully awake. My greatest troubles is only giving the knowledge to people, not what I'm experiencing in my personal life, as people call it, since they still want to have personal lives. Now, here's the thing. You see, the trees are worlds. They stack cubes on top of cubes. Now, a cube is a square. So if we draw a line in the middle of the square, then we get two triangles. So we can automatically determine that a square is a dualistic symbol. Square is duality. A circle is not. A circle is a constant. Okay? So with the cubes, the two triangles, you put them together like this, and you'll notice that they make that Megan star thing again. And that's because the whole creation of world is done on six. It's just SX. And that's not a Nissan. So here's how it worked in the old days. What they would do, they would work on creating Golem until he got a hold of the ring. Meaning that they started making these Cabalistic figures, also known as Sims. They are simulations or copies or clones of other things. Because remember, they're not using anything original because they're not originators. So you'll see here the familiar spirits were what they would put their Cabalistic entities into for a while. And one of the major things of what you don't understand about what's going on in the palace, especially in the Queen of England's palace, and the dogs and the constant breeding of dogs and thoroughbreds, is because that's where, through the Canaanite initiation, which is in the Ark of their covenant of Anubis, which comes out as Anunnaki to everyone now, still everyone's missing the Anu in the front, the dog gods are continuously birthing their fearful wolf-like children into this world. Now, I'm not saying that we need to get rid of all the Martian, fearful, wolf-like children. What I'm saying is they need to be instructed. They can go through their wolf phase all they want in a room by themselves, but they're not in a room by themselves. So now the wolf is running around the world, and no one will even approach it. That it can. Can is Canaan. Canaan is dog. The dog is the priest. The dog is the god. They like a dog as a god because they can train it to attack. That's Kabbalah. You see? They train up and make up these things. And of course, I'm not talking about Judaism. I, of course, got on Islam the other day. They sent a Sandy. Broke the shield of New York, the big apple or the big pentagram. You see, you don't get what's going on, but you're participating. That's why people have to actually see what they're doing so that they can wash their hands with it. Wash your hands with it. It is finished, as the interpretation says. It is finished. I've washed my hands with it. I'm no longer doing it. So here we are. So this is actually a very a gentle picture of the art now. In fact, I'm glad I posted this picture first, because this is more of the comedy of what the golem and the actual creation of infusing spirits inside of the body became. Just familiars, okay? But before, it was the big auroch with the crown on the head. Let me see if I can source that picture. That picture's in here, so we're going to have to source it later. But what you'll see is why in Samaria there's this huge cow-like entity with a horn on its head. Okay? And this is because the infusing in the fusing of a certain Cabalistic spirit and then birth. And remember, all these are happening simultaneously. That's why a lot of people get lost, is because you have to understand that it's done here first on a spiritual level, and then as it's even ascending into a molecular level, it's still occurring. And even when it takes into a liquid form, it's still occurring. And many of these individuals that have the power and the knowledge will intercept it at a certain point before it reaches, especially the individuals that it's supposed to happen to. Meaning that there are actually benevolent forces that prevent crazy stuff from happening all the time. But I tell you the truth, it takes many individuals to work on this. And because, of course, the world is being encouraged to go in the opposite direction, it's less people actually giving out the knowledge that heals a person and makes them whole. That's why the pentagram became known as a symbol of health or heat, which basically is the warmth that is generated when you feel like everything is all right. But no, they bring the ice queen, Isis, money, the dollar sign, to make people cold, using numbers as a way to denote who's who and what's what. Not tapping into your feelings and seeing who you really are. You just become a number to them. So let me put you into the next level of knowledge. It's P in A. And that P would definitely be seen on in that sign ye shall conquer, which is the Chiro. The P of the papacy and all the power and the principle and all the, I almost said some cuss words that equal genitive principles, but you know what I'm talking about. This is the P and A. It's a 3-strand DNA, and all the initiates that are graduating through their knowledge and system, at the most they get thrown the P and A here. While in the old ancient systems, they would give you 12. Not 13 though. Or 11 sometimes, and not 12. Because the numbers still govern how great you can be. And this is where things started getting this futuristic coding over everything. Because there became a problem. And you can find the problem in all of history. But to explain it again, the gods or the ancient ones, when putting their seeds here, the seeds began to grow, the children, the demigods, and then in seeing what was occurring between the ancient ones and this planet and even the children, decided to cut the tree down. And when falling the tree, or the oak, I think that one of them is even the oak of Mayhem, why it comes to my mind, why falling the tree, which also end up getting a lot of people stuck here. Excuse me, because you cut the DNA, cut the ladder, now nobody's connected. So again, I kind of lost the complete idea of what I was saying, but you get the point. There is another 3rd strand of DNA entity running around, while most still remain on 2-strand DNA. These 3-strand DNA people are basically on a hive mind control system because the DNA is completely hybridized. It comes in a lot of the different things that people ingest daily, but don't think that they're not changing up the DNA. So let's keep moving with this. Cabalistic seed. This is what I was talking about earlier. So how this works is, this is the kingdom that your world is being ruled by currently without even going noticed. This is one Cabalistic seed. Now, what this is the name of God, as they call it, when spoken, the name of God, to make it clear, the name of God spoken to an external reality creates Cain, because it's a maximized power of external, fearsome, all-powerful energy. Meaning that if you can actually idolize that you could bring some God into a small 3D plane, you got to be kidding. So now you also see that humans are becoming something else from their quote-unquote God-like state, because they are fallen. They're not like they were before. So it doesn't make them like that. I mean, it doesn't make them God. So they can be in earth, and earth can hold them. But you bring God here, meaning the actual Ein Sof, the greatest ever, and this whole thing will break loose in no time. Think about it. If the Most High, or our idea of the Most High, is supposed to be everything, and then somehow we want to bring everything here into a externalized reality, you can obviously see what the problem with that would be. Okay? So what they do is they've shaved it down, basically. They have the powers that they use are in a hierarchy. And as I say, this may not mean anything to most people, but it means worlds to them. So what it is that you see a pantheon of gods underneath one fire god known as Yah. Then Yah has his component, which is called He, which is the wife, or the pentagram. So right off the bat, you got Yod, and then you got Yod-He. Then Yod-He get together and make this child called Va, which is supposed to be man. So now you got Yah-He-Va. Then what happens is they get the child then gets together with the feminine version and creates He. And this is their kingdom. Now, the only flaws with this is that the individuals that are playing the roles in the kingdom are terrible. Fire is painful. And this is why fire, of course, teaches a very quick lesson. There's a fire there, you get burned. You never put your hand in fire again. But some people haven't learned their lesson. They want to play with the fire some more. So when you're dealing with fire gods in the fire kingdom, you better be a fireman and have a lot of water, or else it's going to end up turning sour for you. And this is, of course, this name is important because it makes up the Christian faith. It makes up the Catholic faith. It actually makes up the entire pantheon of all the angels that all the angels are under, which are shared throughout religion. So this is the hive. Okay? So now remember, the issue with this is it's God's image. It's not God. And I'm going to use this term God so that it just, becomes simple for people, but it's God's image. Anytime you bring something into the external world, it's only an image. A Shaddai, a shade, a tree, a backside of God. You can't bring everything here. You see? Like, this is also teaching us what the big lesson is that these nations are trying to hoard and take everything. I want to become king of the earth. Give it all to me. I'm not going to go anywhere. You see? It's all mine. I don't want to leave. I'm scared to go. I'm scared of death. How can I not die? And something whispers, you can come and eat from the tree. But, no, you can't. Because remember, in the book it also says, and this is why you know that the beings that are in Genesis are also malevolent, is they say, oh my goodness, he's ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. They've ate from the tree. Let us get them out of here, for they make a mistake and stretch their hand forth and eat from the tree of life. Wait, wouldn't the tree of life be the cure? So basically it's saying, let us make haste in confusing them so that they never get to the end of the tree of knowledge. So now you get all this knowledge everywhere. You know, they could tell you how to do it with this and how to do it with that and how to do it like David Wolf and eat this and eat that and do it Deepak Chopra style and do it Gary Coleman style, whatever. Not Gary Cohen, but you know, the other guy that's the motivation speaker. So everyone's there telling, this is how you do it, never realizing that they're too under the principality themselves of a fire god. Cain or Moloch. Saturn, who's eating the children, not in an actual gesture of eating open the child, but a gesture of keeping them inside of time and deteriorating them over time. Saturn's image is an old man. We don't get old. This is only an incubation in the cocoon for another stage. Look at what the butterfly is before it becomes the butterfly. Now, that and how that cocoon looks, because it looks really nasty, is what we kind of are now. And we're still beautiful. Meaning you can notice the 5H relationship in the chrysalis. So the emancipation brings us even into a more beautiful state and with wings. This is what the knowledge teaches. So of course, again, let's finish this. The hierarchical code of YHVH, it then compressed upon itself, brought into a third dimension, becomes Cain. So anyone who actually thinks that they're going to use the ineffable name, meaning you're not supposed to pronounce it, it's only supposed to be intoned within one's own temple, not any externalized temple. Now the temple, of course, is configured as a hexagram in uniting with a pentagram. That's the body. You need no physical temple. But when the word or God unites with the temple, then the whole temple lights up. This is enlightenment. But what they've debased it into, and let me show you what they've debased it into, is Venusian rituals. Somehow along the way, in picking up cults of Isis, because one of the females that were born got an Emmy by making another one of those rampant gods drunk, meaning that the female decided, you know what, this is crazy. Because the triple goddess, if you understand, is Earth. So it was here before. It just didn't look like what we see it now. The primordial energies didn't look like what we appear to be now. When we say what a female is, we're talking about whether it's a giver or a receiver. And in most cases, these entities were both. It's just when we had to depict them, we had to put them on one side or another, the knowledge of good and evil. So again, you see the triple goddess, which I'm sourcing pictures here. You see that obviously there is a great level of pain and disappointment from mothers when they see their sons even kill other mothers and kill other children. There's nothing about any of the ancient mothers that would have ever liked to see that. So after growing callous and cold over time, what is called chronos, as in chron means time. All planets, by the way, were known as chronos, or time or gears themselves. So what you find that happen is there obviously was a darker feminine energy, which is also known as Lilith. It's regret from a pain that has been caused, a lie, deceit. Now, if you think characters such as Lilith are the evilest thing ever, you'll see in this world today we create Liliths all the time. Meaning that every time a man disappoints a woman continuously and then she gets to a point where she's fed up of it completely, she becomes a more darker energy, refusing life. Meaning this is when the woman does not want to have any more kids. I need to wipe myself down here. But she doesn't want to have kids because she's like, I'm not going to have any kids by this guy. He's not even going to take care of the kids. Or he's not even going to, he's not even right. We argue all the time. And notice how now, anytime they depict either dancing or anything on TV with couples, it's always arguing and fighting, right? Because now the serpent has weaved his way into the relationship. But what's really happening is you'll find that there's an all-pervading dark feminine style energy. Not saying all females are dark. Of course, there's a light feminine energy, but this is klipa. This is the inverted side of things, and there's a correspondence of everything that you could think is positive in this plane, because all they are counterfeiters. Remember, they're using the image or mirror of God. When we look into this mirror, meaning when we look into this world, we fall in love with what's in the mirror like Narcissus. meaning that the entire world is only a projection of who the Most High is. But the Most High is inside. So anytime we're looking outside, you're seeing into the image of God, but it's already divided. Because your eyes that you're using two eyes. So everything is going to be divided. So you look outside and you say, I like that tree. Never seeing the grass and the bushes and all the other stuff that's around it to support that tree. You see, like, I'm telling you, you can get it all from this conversation. Let's go on. I have to tell you about what Zionism is because obviously it's rose its head again in order for it to be cut off. What this is about is, and I just want to let even the individuals who are practicing such things to really understand what this is about, because it seems like they forgot since they left Babylon, and that they won't go back to Babylon or back to Egypt or back to the places that were denoted as being run by slave gods, because that's what gods want. They want worship. They want you to jump in your warship or Merkaba and ride it over to another country and explode it on somebody if they could. They're sending you into your death. And that's why, again, they don't go themselves. You see this correspondence in everything. You don't see General whoever right there on the front of the battlefield. No, you see the peon grunt who doesn't even know why he's there and can't even comprehend it. So the thing is, Teflon. You see the shin here. Now they have the quadruple shin, by the way, which they have an ineffable name for that because too many people figured out what the name of shin actually is. But when you remove shin, which is when you remove the H from the shin, you get sin. When you get to Sinai, as Jordan Maxwell will tell you, you get to the actual lunar god himself. And you know the lunar god has horns and is also symbolized as a crescent moon along with Venus. So the crescent moon and the star uniting is none other than Venus and the moon into another relationship with each other and trying to bring forth more Cabalistic entities. So what you'll see here in the Tefillim is the actual mark of Shin, which is actually the mark of Sion. Sion is a psi. It looks like this. Okay, it's a trimurti. It's a triple goddess or anything in triple fold. And then it goes even like this, which is the 3 points of these triangles. It's 3 points. Okay, so that is what they worship as God. So get that in your head, because now this new program they brought to you, which is why I showed you the seed and give you the knowledge of the seed of life, or the seed of actually programmed life on this dimension. Again, the seed of programmed life. This image here, which is, as I showed you, the YHVH mirrored upon itself so that it becomes the pyramidal cube that it needs to be, now has another component. This is another one of the deeper mysteries that, you know, who knows and everyone will be able to comprehend that, which is where did the character Jesus come from and who is Jesus? Jesus is Yah-Ke-Bah-Ke Shin. Okay, if you look into the actual tetragrammaton itself, the one that I believe the one Eliphaz Levi drew, you'll see that the shin is added because now they want to replace the cube, or this particular level of knowledge wants to replace its cube or its normal Yad-He-Vah-He to a Yad-He-Vah-He shin or a pentagram. Now remember, previous to that, there's still Yah sitting on the throne as these mansions are being created by entities that he's supposed to be in war with. Now, the play on it is that he is not a him, because he is he. Our English word for he, H-E, which means man, is Hebrew for he, which means five, which means female. So that's where the whole androgynous component comes in. Again, you can't understand the mysteries until you've actually lived the mystery. And until people wake up, everything will be a mystery somewhat. So as you see in Judaism, in this image here, and I have the screen, it's kind of showing the images, but by next week, by the way, we're going to have another piece of equipment that allows me to pipe the camera right into any of these screens, and that'll give you the picture full screen. So that should be awesome. And also we should be able to get Skype calls back in because we're going to go ahead and get a mixer. So this thing is definitely going to even increase so that people don't think like they're getting the last message. Message will always continue to be delivered. Trust me. The reality is here is that once they took the Isis component, which is the Venusian cult of the dark dog god. Now, let me clarify this because most people are like, okay, wait a minute, where does the dog come in at? Like, what's going on? Well, a dog is a wolf, by the way. Let's get it straight. A dog itself is only a domesticated wolf or a canine.
So what happened is you had this darker side of the planet Venus known as the dog. Now, here is Set depicted also as a dog. Some people still are confused of why there's a confusion between Set and Saturn, but it is because of the dog. And this is how you know, because in the Mayan work, you'll find that they have the actual story of where the dog came from and what its purpose is here and how it serves Kukulkan. Okay, and you'll now see that as the next image, and you can take your leisure time to actually to look over that. But basically what I'm explaining to you in a nutshell is that there is a covenant going on with the dog. And that many of the dogs, and I talked about this before, like even before I fully realized this knowledge, but the dangerous thing about a dog is that you can train it to attack and it will never ask why it's attacking. It will, if you send it at a baby, it'll eat the baby to pieces, one of these fearful dogs, and never think when it runs up to the baby, wait, this is the baby. Owner, I can't do this. You see? So understand that that is also how they like to command things. They like to command things that don't ask questions. That's why you have to ask all the questions, meaning that you see how they send somebody else to war. Sir, why am I going? What, soldier? Did he just... You see, like back in the day, they always show you anyone question, they get shot. So this is the stage that they would rather have everyone not asking questions. I ask all the questions. They don't control me. Now, and then in order to get yourself in a state where they don't control you, you only need to come in a full realization of what they are actually doing. And then you start cutting off all these hoses that they have to you, draining your energy. You start to spend time instead of looking into more of what they're doing because pretty much the knowledge is replete. It's obvious what they're doing. You start working on yourself doing it, meaning that you actually start to correct and fix your own DNA in your own vehicle, not playing around in some of their Cabalistic works that can never be accomplished because you're getting a half truth or a half book. So here's the other level of the knowledge that was delivered within the Old Testament is that the tribes of Israel, or the tribes of the Hebrews, because remember, Israel becomes later on only from a couple of people from the tribe. What happens is that, actually, let me explain that. I need to explain to you what Rothschild or Red Shield really is first, before I get into this Hebrew layout of the tribes. Who Rothschild is he is the lion from the tribe of Judah, the red lion. Okay, and this is why if you go to Britain and you go into places like that, they always use the lions like crazy in the symbolism. There's even another picture that I won't be able to source today because I would have to find it. But what you'll see is that this lion of the tribe of Judah, why the Rastafarians would love to jump in there and say, it's me. It's actually Baron Rothschild has taken those rights because he bought those rights. He bought Israel, or the country we're calling Israel. They're buying things. They use their oaths, pacts, rituals, cuttings of trees, their money, their pinnacles, their talismans, and they use all of that. And then they go into these countries with non-suspecting people, and then they start getting them to sign things and give up certain places, and they put their beacons or their points. Let me show you how this works. They put their beacons or their obelisks or their points into countries, and then they begin to colonize them. And as you can see, that it's obviously not gentle, seeing it's from the colon. So what happens is that you see it's all about fertility in this ancient knowledge that supposedly came from Egypt, but was really trafficked all throughout the world. Now, notice this. And these images, I advise you, are somewhat graphic. If you do have children watching, you ought to be ashamed of yourself because I told you in the beginning, it's an adept conversation. Now, look. The knowledge of the Egyptians was for them to take in certain energies, netters, genes, DNA, whatever you call it, and then them to mate with certain vessels or women or even animals that were configured for to receive their seed. So they basically were doing it old school style, the genetic manipulation. And this is the only change between the past in the future now is because they no longer really want to use fully organic beings for this process. That's why they've incorporated the machines or the Borg, because they don't ask questions. What happened last time, obviously, is they got their ass whooped by half gods. They say a time in which heroes and gods were on the earth at the same time. And the heroes stood up. And this is basically the sons and the daughters that were birthed still saying no when it's not right and not caring who's doing it. See, that's also the key. I don't care who's doing it. Let's look at this. Here we go. Again, the guided. People need to understand, like, there are individuals that are guided. Like, sometimes these images, I swear it's the ghost in the machine. Like, you're looking for something. I'm working with one keyword in particular that nobody has ever heard. I pull it out of some ancient dictionary from Gutenberg, falling apart. And then I go and Google it and I hit images and boom, I'll come up to certain things and I'll be like, whoa, that was on the wall? Yeah, it was on the wall before they shaved it off. See, they keep rewriting the history. Like, they keep changing the wall, and everyone expects that what's there before is what's there now is what was there before. No, that's not what was there before. They're shaving it off and reconstructing it, and it's just plaster. Like, people think that this is the ancient knowledge and I just need to figure it out. Man, please. The whole thing is rigged. And until you understand the code, then you can't unlock it. So the code is delivered. Ephraim and Manasseh, by the way, which is one of the 12 tribes of Israel, is the United States. Okay? So what you'll just notice from that, without me getting into the whole explanation of the abominations of Ephraim and Manasseh and them fighting with other people and fighting with other tribes, is that each tribe on earth stands for the Hebrews. That's what you need to get straight. It's like Hoshin, or the breastplate. Each crystal stands for a particular group of people. Not one group of people that we're calling Jewish people. Okay? So what you have to realize is what Baron Rothschild actually did was him and his uprooted people, meaning the individuals that he was with, had no home. And that's why Cain is always seen wandering, because he was kicked out. So he doesn't have a home. So all of their offspring develop the abilities of when you don't have a home or a mother. And that's the whole secret also behind Mars, is that the Martian children were left and then they were raised by wolves or dogs. You see what I mean? So what happened is that you have one particular individual who is very upset and very bitter, or a group of individuals very upset and very bitter about their race and about the history of their race. And it appears to them that they're losing in the race. Okay, so what they develop is an idea that is founded on again, this is obviously a child that has been abused heavily. They formulate an idea in order to actually create a holy land for themselves. And let me keep my eyes on this sound. To create a holy land for themselves, okay? Now, this is the proposition that was made. So those who are claiming that they're Jews and they really aren't can understand that they don't have any love for anyone calling themselves Jews. And Jews is not Zionism. You see what I mean? This is it's bigger than that. Understand this. When they were offered an opportunity to pay the money to take 1 million people, or 100,000 Jews from Russia into the new Israel, which was an area they just conquered, or what we're calling Israel, the land of Canaan, which was an area they just conquered, they refused. Those in the league with Rothschild said, we only need 10,000. And when they paid for those 10,000, they killed the other 90,000 as a sacrifice. The Holocaust and all of these things are their works. That's why, as Jordan Maxwell shows you, Holocaust means a burnt offering to their god, Moloch, who's Cain. Okay? And they worship Cain. So anyone who's around them, flee from them. Meaning that do not partake with them. Knock down their Asherah, meaning knock down their wealth. So, as you see, there was a selecting that the Red Shield family did. The Red Shield is red because of blood, by the way. The Red Shield family begins to isolate other Hebrews in order to begin to steal the covenant. And this is what the chart I just sourced to you is about. It's showing you that the tribes that were selected and then the other ones were rejected. And other ones became a part of other nations. You can see the British Hebrews went one way. Look, the Nubians are still over there. They are the real Levites. They're still over there dealing with the troubles that have been done when their Nubian kingdom was split into 3 parts, which has become Eritrea, Somalia, and Ethiopia. Still reeling, talking about they got the covenant and that all these rights are really theirs and that the Holy Land is really theirs. Meanwhile, as the footage I just sourced, the Eritreans are being sent to concentration camps while we speak when they cross the desert and also crossing from Sudan into what is supposed to be their promised land. You see, like, this is not a game. And that's why now they get a chance to really see what things are about. They think that they're going to tear the world up and do things the way that they did before. Now people know what they're up to. The deals are made behind your back. You're not going to find one of these Cabalistic creatures that I'm talking about at your local mall. You're not going to find principalities, rulers, and dominions with scaly breastplate hides running around at Lady Gaga's. Actually, you might find them at Lady Gaga's concert. But you're not going to, what I'm saying is you're not going to find them around the corner. So just because you don't see some of these individuals that are carrying the mark, meaning that what is known to occur in this whole transaction of the voodoo current was that it would go like a black vine up your legs and into your body, possessing you, like Spider-Man being possessed into his Venom character. And then what would occur from that is that individual would be more of a dark energy on the astral plane than doing anything on the physical reality. So they kept them in coffins or sarcophaguses. Not anything for them to run around in physical chariots and so they can proclaim their rights in front of the sun who's killing and deteriorating everything. No, not for that. They had it for the dark world or the astral plane or the abyss or the place where you don't need an external light. See, this is what makes the astral plane so powerful, is because to see there means you have a light within. To not be able to see it means your light has gone out. So you see which is actually creates a wormhole. A burned out star creates a wormhole, by the way. And so the tunnels of Set or the tunnels of time are old stars that burned out a long time ago that individuals keep traveling back down, acting like they're going to get something new. Ain't nothing new under the sun. So I tell you the truth. Hitler and a lot of these cardinals and the rest of the Vatican and all of them are still in cahoots together. Newsflash, if it wasn't one for you already. So you better figure out what they're kind of doing while you're on the dimension. Meaning that until you come into complete awakening of who you are, it's very important for you to understand what individuals are doing around you. Like, to me, I need to watch everyone. I got kids. You see, some people say, well, now, around my children, I'm not going to let anyone just be any old kind of way and do things. Oh, well, you better start doing something now then. This is the full realization also that's come to me, which of course has made me wax stronger and more powerful. See, all of what we think is what we can't handle, what we fear, when we accept that it's our responsibility to rectify and to correct that, then it actually becomes our expansion. The true initiation is within the initiative. And that's why the words are almost the same. So you see, again, I just had to show it. It's more comedy to me now. This individual thinks that he's going to take a cock, which is the symbol of the sun god, and hold it over his head so the cock can absorb his sins. Okay? Now watch this. This symbol, which also is known as Abraxas, which is 365 days a year, which is in a solar year, is what he's doing. But he's taking it literal. He's got the Talmudic prayer and he's reading with this chicken over his head, thinking it's going to absorb his sins. Now, the same thing happens with the whole Jesus component. And that's why Jesus was often confused with Abraxas. Because many were asking, well, this is no different than the worship of Abraxas. How is something supposed to die for my sins? Show it to me. That's how these people were. Show me something that I can do crazy things and then it becomes okay. Maybe I can do it for like 10 years and as long as I survive, I just go get baptized and then bam. You see? Or I've already done things and I'm thinking now that I'm going to go and make one commitment or buy myself up an oath and pact with some individual named Yes, which is what Jesus really means. And then that now I'm just going to have absolution from all my sins. It has to come a different way, buddy. Like nobody can do that for you. But what it does also cause is it causes problems such as Azazel. Now, if you notice in the Old Testament, there is one entity that is already marked out as being highly rampant and very mischievous and malevolent, also known as the goat god of the forest, who comes under the name to us as Azazel. Now, in the Old Testament, it actually says during the rituals in the Temple of Solomon that you're to take the goat, and then the priest is to absorb the sins of the tribe, and then he is to take his hands and he is to place them upon the horns of the goat, and then he is to release the goat into the wilderness, into Azazel, and let Azazel devour it. And by that, all the sins of Israel will be devoured by Azazel. Huh? Okay, well, I'm not going to tell you the obvious problems with that right now, but realistically, then where is this being? Because if we're feeding it all of our sins and we think that it's absorbing all of our sins, and that's something that we're doing, it's probably highly concentrating itself and getting very powerful at this point on our sins or on our moons. You see, like our moons are our archives. It's our past. It's what we've done that we haven't recognized. And that's why they say, I say amongst you, he will be an accuser. Meaning that if he can absorb your sins, then he will accuse you of those sins never being rectified because they're yours. You have to make right your own wrongs. But I told you, these people, they're playing around with stuff that they didn't even fully understand when they got a hold of it. And that's why it's a captive's religion. It's for when a person is desperate. That's why they picked it up in the prisons of Babylon, in the prisons of Egypt. In these prisons, they picked up this in their times of desperation. But I tell you the truth, when desperation comes to man and woman, they often make the wrong choices. But we have to be able to stand up to rectify those choices so history doesn't repeat itself again. Because it's within this next picture I'm sourcing, I see no difference between Nazism and all out, what is that? I don't even know what you call it these days. Jihad, I guess. The reality is it's killing. So overall, you got Big ET, whether you want to call him AWAS, whether you want to call him the God Dog, whether you want to call them, because realistically they were known as the hidden ones, Satar, whether you want to, the ones who cause confusions but are not seen. This is what they say is the mystery of the sun, is to understand that there are beings here or things that you don't understand, but you have to be around all the time. Meaning that, not to get off the subject, but the sun's in the sky every day and it shines every day. And if it just doesn't happen to shine, then it's going to get pretty cold around here and nobody's going to be able to see things. Problems are going to ensue. But what is it? You live here every day with it, but you don't know what it is. Let this be a sign amongst you. So, once again, you see, all out jihad. It's starting again. Why? Here's another secret. I dug up one from the Esoteric archives, staying up all night, baby in one hand, still rocking. Aladdin. It's the secret of the genie. Some people want to take the picture now. They think that maybe the world will shut down right now and if they get this picture, it won't. Here it is. It's the ascension of the Cabalistic tree, which you recognize, but it is now brought into the scope of what the genie in the bottle really is. Or again, this is the bottle or the vessel or the clay jar, and the genie in it is your soul. However, when you think of it as external, now what it's talking about is it's talking about how to extract the soul from another life form. Again, this kind of thing blew the whistle on. It's a wrap. Like, do you actually think that it will continue to go on? The temples of Solomon, just to finish this for you, because we've now got into 1 o'clock. The temples of Solomon, by the way, are everywhere. They are basically laid out in the streets. And I had at least 4 of these pictures. I just had to get these up at somewhat of the last moment. But what you'll find is that your so-called leaders, who people keep voting for all the time and going to ballots, as I said, is the ballot, and casting their vote, is spell cast, this is where the situation is coming in at, because these people are fully dedicated to carving out what this being is telling them to carve out, as they continuously find themselves trapped in a dimension in their mind, which is a stage of dementia. So let me just look over my notes really briefly here to make sure that I went over everything. Okay, once again, the end game for them is this, before we get to some of the solutions. I will quote from Liebenfels. Actually, let me source this certificate. I said I was going to source this today, and I see that it tried to get away. What the? Okay, here we go. Just hold on really briefly for me. No, just joking. Okay. Yeah, okay, here we go. This right here is a Theosophical diploma. Just going to narrow real fast. Oops. Okay. So, it's very elementary, but I have to cover all bases here, just so you understand that these schools, some people are asking me now, should I join Masonry? Should I, if they're brothers, they're coming, they're knocking on my door, they're asking, do I want to be a part? And, it's harmless. I went to a couple things. What could they be really doing wrong? They talk about honor. They talk about that as their highest principle. Look, okay, they don't talk about anything until it takes. Meaning that they're not going to tell you anything until they understand, can they mate you with one of these beings? And then from that point on, they're just going to tell you what to do. Because the experience is going to be so petrifying that it's going to leave you as a host or a hostage inside of your own body. And some people are experiencing that now as a level of excessive habits, to a point where they can't really do anything without engaging in the habit. And so let me give you, or the Hobbit as I always call it, the little men. Let me give you the image here. Oh, astral piggybacking. I did a couple posts on the resistance, but I'm not sure. They were actually answers to questions, and I sourced these images. So I need to make sure that I source them here just in case anyone missed them. But astral piggybacking is when you agreed to tie yourself to one of these beings one way or another, may not be something you knew about. And then what they do is they overshadow you or ride you from the back, because that is where the Shirol lock is, which is this area that is right underneath the shoulder blade, is a vulnerable point for the human being, and entities can enter there, what they call pressure points. Now we're going to, of course, be rolling into the solution here, because where a great deal of our problems are coming from is that we actually have holes within our field that are causing great levels of imbalance. This manifests as, at times, us being very tired. This manifests as diseases. This manifests in many different ways. And let me just title this. This is another way to begin to remove the imbalances. And you can find a lot of literature on bioenergetics. And of course, the magnets for bioenergetics are very, it's $2, $3. It's having the magnets in the right point, but also understanding exactly what you're doing. But what you're doing is you're actually bringing your body back into actual balance, because what you're dealing with, and this picture is coming up in just a moment. What you're dealing with is you're dealing with these points within your body that become entry points at times when you're vulnerable. So it's basically like if your body is on armor, even sometimes made of scales, let's say, and you have a scale missing from somewhere, then that becomes an entry point. And then how that entry point manifests is as what some people call a temptation. And this basically is an encouragement, as you see on the movie Branded, to go and eat something or do something that is going to lower your vibratory frequency. It's like a suggestion, and it seems like it comes from you, but it's not. And many people already, we talk about how even Candida kind of suggests to you that you should go eat some sugar, and it sends that frequency or sends that inclination, and then you pick it up as an idea. So these are bioenergetic charts, and I'm actually entering a study myself, so I will definitely be dealing with a lot of that knowledge here within a couple of weeks. But I know just from, the oversoul that always guides me to exactly what's going on, I know that this is a major key for us, because anytime that we're unbalanced and we're vulnerable, and then it makes us do things that we're not supposed to do for ourselves or for the love of ourselves. Also, I wanted to again finish clarifying, and I do hate to put this picture up on top of my beautiful work, but again, understand that the Cabalistic studies of the past of these ancient Nephilim, etc., was to fuse their spirits inside of very large beings, whales even. And that's why Leviathan was known as the great sea serpent. Many of these entities were very large physically. And then once their physical bodies, which we sometimes call giants, passed away, then their spirits roamed through the land. And this is what it talks about in the book of Enoch. And they became known to humans as evil spirits. And people would begin to carry talismans and things around to ward off evil spirits. And this, of course, ended up degenerating into what we call occult symbolism, or seals, talismans, pentacles, etc. But what you are really dealing with is that they say that, of course, that because many of these beings understood the geometry related to life, that when being showed that geometry, they could become magnetized or tethered to it. Now, this is basically summing up completely what the occult and the evocation does. It tethers an entity to a symbol that it remembers. And this also allows me to finish up what I was talking about earlier that was so valuable, and I kind of skipped the subject, which is this tethering. When you see a person that is so incessantly, no matter how smart or intelligent they may appear, keep talking about this God that they worship, or this entity or this being who they serve, and how that's the way to everything, that means that they're tethered. So in theory, instead of them having God dog on a leash, God dog has got them on a leash. And then so what they do is they go around saying it's only through this Christ Jesus, it's only through this Baphomet, it's only through this Kemet, and it's only through this that you can get to, because they're still tethered to the star, because the star was where they got their information from. Now remember, even within the symbols of the pentagram and the hexagram is hidden the codes to 5, creation of worlds, and the codes of light and water. So everything in between there is a pretty long conversation. So if a person somehow imagines that that's where that star is related to a certain entity, and then that's the entity they got the knowledge from, then they become tethered to the star, just like a demon. That's the biggest secret, that humans are becoming a part of the evocation of sorcerers, and have always been. Again, I'm showing you some of the ancient books, or books that were written that are now in circulation, that are detailing much of the occult knowledge of how to do this. I'm just showing you that for you to understand that it's actually going on. It's not a figment of our imagination, something that we need to ignore, or something that will go away if we stop paying attention to it. No, this is something that we've actually been caught up in for quite some time. And here's the other situation. It's getting more advanced. Now, they switched the system, because remember, there was a desire to move away from using organic beings, because organic beings have the tendency to act like Golem with the ring. Meaning once Golem got the ring, then he had the ring of power, or the knowledge of time, which is the rest of the story of Golem. And then he was no longer basically, he was just not even a man, and became the possessor of this ring. So what it's actually telling you is that after them creating certain things and making certain mistakes, there's many beings that have it in for them. And they're no better, though. So remember, a lot of those factions are the ones that are trying to get people to join them now. They have even new names they're coming out with. the Federation of this and the Galactic this, but all it is rogue, as they showed you in the movie The Matrix, when the Oracle was asked who these entities like the Merovingian really were, she said they are programs that refuse to go into exile, meaning sims or simulations or Cabalistic creations that refuse to be destroyed by their creators. So this is the whole idea of course, Metatron or Sephiroth, which is the entity that is created to just take orders and then somehow becomes conscious. So what you notice is the game has been stepped up. There's a crop circle even in here of the menorah, which is actually the symbol of Phi and the covenant itself. But how do the crop circles, done so perfectly, start to come out with all these shapes and designs that we know that are related to the occult symbolism here on Earth? It's because they're switching the system. Instead of doing it through your food, and instead of doing it through their music, and instead of doing it through their movies, they're working rapidly to do it through plastic and aluminum and different devices and machines. However, the human being has what's called an immune system, the resistance. Okay? For anyone who's still trying to figure out what that means, the resistance is the immune system. It's what rejects what the body and mind and soul knows that will not be wholesome for it. Why accept it is the real question. So let's keep going here. And I'm finishing up. I just wanted to make sure that, especially within this particular show, that I encompassed everything, because I really don't want to have these conversations much, even though I will be having them for the next week in a few of the shows that I'll be going on. I'll be, of course, giving different levels of this information. So also what you have to realize, just if you want to understand the Oriental cultures, if the Orientals feel like they've been left out, that the I Ching was containing all of the different dip switches, per se, of the different characteristics that can be added in the DNA. So again, PlayStation, you sit here and flip a couple dip switches. I want them to be nice, but not passive. I want them to be beautiful, but not weak. And then I want it to be with poison. And then I want it to be, and then once that's all configured, then the sorcerer, the magus, or whatever you call them, depending upon what energy they're bringing forth, gets to start to working on bringing it through the portal. Okay? So this is also why, if you notice with occult books, they're gauged, if you really understand, especially the occult with OTO and all these organizations, they have these books that have entities inside of them. But the most important thing about these books and why they cost $50,000 to $100,000 is there's a number on the book. So they'll tell you there's only one, this is one of 5, meaning that only 5 people are using these demons that I, as a sorcerer, have created. That's what you're experiencing in there. So then once that book goes into publication, and this is, of course, the trick of all this esoteric knowledge, their whole knowledge is cunning, by the way. This is cunning, magic through cunning is what it's called. So then once they get someone once the book goes into publication, and it was only one of 5, only the 5 people in that book control those demons. So anyone that evokes those demons ends up becoming controlled by the individuals who have the 5 books. Then on top of that, that's exactly what they intend to do. That's what they do to each other. And that's why in the Bohemian Grove it says on the roof, "Spiders weave not thy webs here," meaning that, hey, don't cast magic against people that are inside of here. We're warning you. But in the traditional free-for-all world of thieves and pirates, they can't trust and have no honor amongst each other. So they often practice the magic against each other. So get it right. So the I Ching, again, someone's asking for the solution before I've completely mapped out the problem, which is going to be a problem. I told you again, the solution is in bioenergetics and actually balancing yourself. The solution was already available to us a long time ago, and is continuously explained almost every show. How it appears that people can't take it serious enough, which is actually that they're still to sleep. This means that when the information that is riveting and can awake or shock you comes across and you don't get awakened or shocked, then the only thing that can be done from that point is to continuously reveal to you more and more what's going on. And that's all I'm doing. I think since at least 6 to 7 months ago, we were already giving individuals keys to the activated body and understanding one basic principle. You are what you eat. Your mind, body, and soul, and what it takes in determines what you become. Your mind takes in the knowledge, your body takes in the food, and the soul takes in pretty much everything in its essence. And that's what actually governs your entire sphere. And so that's it. But that's not enough for people. They need to hear the fine details. They need to see what was in the fine print for them. So that's what I'm doing. And by all means, that it will be done. Everything must be disclosed about what is taking place in order for us to get to the next level of our expansion, meaning that all of this will birth something. We will get to a point where we learn all the lessons that are being taught to us right now within this knowledge. And I'm again sourcing another image here. Speaking of images, you will see that the only thing that the counterfeiters or evolvers have been doing is using the image of nature to create things. And I show here several of the geometric patterns that are used, never with straight lines though, in the occult, but it's plagiarized directly from nature. And that's why nature, to the people who practice the occult, is God. Okay? We're almost done here. I sourced this picture earlier on Facebook. This is I Ching in aminos, just to show you once again that the knowledge and the codes were already kept by the individuals in the Orient, and there was already the genetic modifications taking place there. Let's go on a little bit here. And I just want to, I'm again finishing off all the images that I did put together for today because it was quite an effort. So I don't want to really miss anything. Here's some other images of just the malevolence. Like I showed you last week where they had the Baphomet or the horn god coming out of the center of the portal. And again, all these symbols mean is not that the Megan star is what is evil. The Megan star is only a symbol of the mating between two forces. It's what's coming from the middle of those two forces. So showing someone the star is showing little to nothing. You have to know the works. You have to know basically what they say is how was the star drawn? Meaning what were they putting, what other rituals were they doing, what names are being evoked. And the reason why that is important is because you would take this symbolism for being something that belongs to them, which I show you in nature. It doesn't belong to them. They're counterfeiting it. But when they counterfeit it, this is their idea. And you see here in this stamp, those alien-like grays, which is actually supposed to be the degenerated symbol of Saturn, who's Awas or Lamb or the floating llama himself. But what happens is that they show you wanting to bring that out of the portal now in this image, while in the old days it was one of the old horn gods out of the portal. So basically humans are sitting back on a dimension that has a door to it, and that, of course, that door is them in many cases, or individuals around them, and they don't even understand what's coming out of that door. So I don't care how long it takes to get this information across. Even today, especially what I have here, I'm going to get the information across. So you see here another Orthodox Kabbalist. And this is, again, the mistake that many are making, is seeing these individuals running around the dimension, but not imagining that they're doing anything or about anything. Sometimes you think, oh yeah, they're just stuck in the Catholic faith. No, my friend, they're already welding and smeltering and working with jewels and gems. They're already utilizing and vampirizing energy from externalized temples that they're configuring on Earth. And they're doing this to other people around you. This conversation today also may not be for many of the individuals that are on the line directly, but may be just to get you to see what is being done to other people, to see if you may be able to awake it within you what is going to wrestle this thing off of them. Meaning that inside of some of the human beings here is a solution to this problem. Why? I told you in the beginning, humans are trees. We have seeds that come off of us as even ideas all the time that can become a cure for what would otherwise be a virus. We keep going. So if people want to, again, know the solution, let me finish off here. I love the images because, like I said, they take you where you need to be to get you to see it, to get you to see, look, you know, I guess I better wake up because obviously I can't sleep around these people. Again, you can't, it's like the Freddy Krueger thing. You can't really go to sleep. You can't say, oh, everything is going to be all right until you actually make it all right. So once again, you'll see here that this knowledge is still continuously being used. And as they say, repetition at times really does teach the lesson. So I'm being somewhat repetitious. But here's another image of the priests, once again, in their temples using that symbol. And now notice in the top right corner, you see the high priest with a dove in his hand. The dove is over fire, and he's going to burn that dove. So the whole idea of the taking of life in order to get in touch with God is how they actually work. And this is, again, a quote from Liebenfels, who says, death to bring life. This is the idea of the Nazi regime. This is the idea of the man of gold or the gold god. The death to bring to life. This is the theory of evolution to them. All the Jung and the Freud has gone to the wrong area in their brain. The death of the weak brings forth a more evolved being. This is, I'm reading you again from the quote of the book they study from. Sacrifice the weak so that the strong can become stronger and obtain the favor of the gods. See, their idea is to basically get everyone to kill themselves by eating the wrong foods, worshiping the wrong gods, doing the wrong things. And that those people that do that, they see as like Gentiles and unfit to get the holy knowledge and thus need to be destroyed anyway. And then they want to create a new man that they feel is going to be so superior that even God will look at his accomplishments. It's like a child, right? That it needs the father really bad and willing to do anything to make father come back. So again, this is their idea of what they want to bring into this world. And as a real Mayan brought forth and said, that they want to bring the gold man, or the man that is fully activated but controlled by Kronos. This is what they want their next move to be. May be put to shame. Let's see the final tidbits here. Okay, it looks like I did source again the Cabalistic or the Theosophical diploma, which you'll find about 3 pictures down. I sourced that because it actually allows you to see that they put the star on that diploma as an indicator that they understand something about the star. But in most cases, they only give them a loose interpretation, or as I said before, they give you this interpretation that is missing several pieces. And that's all you get. And then when you run up against something that actually has more abilities than you, but you're still underneath that same covenant, you're vanquished. And that's just what they do. It's like a dog eat dog world. So here's another symbol to show you that phi in the fingers. You don't have to actually pay attention to what all these people are saying about phi and its connection with our body. You can find it in your own body and see exactly how the body is actually constructed and why this part from here to here is the same length as your foot. Like that kind of collaboration with the body and actually how the symmetry and how it was put together. I'm just, again, checking the final images here to make sure that nothing is missed. There's more temples of Solomon, so still know that those are there. There's also, here's another image, phi in the body. It shows you how the body is divided within phi. It's kind of a crude diagram, but it does get the point across. You have to notice the difference in the lines, but it's showing you the segments of phi within the body. So I can encompass the entire world in one episode as far as what's going on here. At times it gets so redundant. And that's really why we got to spice this thing up and really, really bring forth another level of activation for ourselves and bringing us back to wholeness and understanding our original position and our original place. Again, I wanted to source this image of, I call it beast worship. It's basically when the entity is actually inside of a larger animal, and then that larger animal is being heralded around and worshiped because it's actually inside of the animal, because the animal is a larger vessel. Now, this is not saying that the cow especially down at Tyson Chicken or Tyson Factories, is got a deity inside of him that belongs and corresponds to the Kabbalah, even though every animal does have a spirit inside of it, or a soul, actually a soul inside of it. But what you were dealing with in the old days was these animals that they had infused these souls inside of were actually guiding them. And they were talking to them and even prostrating themselves and even worshiping them. But this was not something that they were doing just because, like, oh, let's go and worship this cow, even though I'm actually feeding them every day. They were doing that because the energies or the spirits of many of these Kabbalistic entities were actually inside of those animals. And that's why burnt offerings were used. And they would sacrifice certain specific animals to specific gods. For instance, Isis, they sacrificed the dog. To Yah, the Jehovah, which is, of course, the Bible or bull god, Moloch, horn god, they would sacrifice calf, oxen, burning up to the heaven, sweet smell to God. People still didn't get it. So I want to say wholeness and balanced vibration to everyone. I think this is the conversation that we needed to have. A lot of people were saying just how it was getting rampant. And just as far as the practice and the worship of many of the things that people are now tied into, and that nobody actually saying nothing was causing more problems than someone actually saying something and revealing all the knowledge and the wisdom behind it, and hoping that that knowledge and wisdom is not used in vain. So again, I presented a lot to you today. It's one of those things that you have to sit back and then you have to take that breath and you have to realize that you need to wake up. You have a position and a role here to do something for humanity. You have to bring together what has been dispersed within first, because that's, of course, what corrects your DNA. Then you realize the Most High in you, and that all is self. And then at that point, you begin to go to work on the spirits, meaning what's going on external to you and the individuals that have been trapped or feel like they are trapped in this reality because they don't know the way out or the key or the code to this matrix. So my name is James Evans Bomar III. I'm, of course, a developer of the planetary resistance and the author of the Cult to the Matrix. I wanted to say to you wholeness and have a great day.